The presentation today is about the Master of Arts and the Graduate Certificate in Tourism Management. And I'm super pleased to be with Brian White, the program head. Brian, if you want to say hi.
Hi there, pleased to meet you all.
Wonderful. I have Natalie Thiesen, that is a RRU grad. Hi, Natalie.
Bonjour, hi.
And myself, Nancy Prévost-Maurice, education specialist here at Railroad University. So the three of us will spend the next hour together and we'll tell you more about the program and about the RRU experience. As we get started with this presentation, I'd like to just take a moment to really connect with the land. So it's very important at Railroad University that we acknowledge the land that we are on. Railroad University acknowledged that the campus is located on the Lekwungen and Cosapsan nations, families known as the Esquimalt and Songhe nation and ancestors. So for us, it's really with deep gratitude that we're learning all together about the past, present, and future of Indigenous and non-Indigenous people. If you know the Indigenous land that you're joining us from today, please enter that in the chat. We always love to learn more about where you're joining from. I'm looking in the chat here. There's more and more people introducing themselves. Thank you so much.
Well, it's afternoon in Winnipeg, maybe morning for some, evening for others. I'm coming to you today virtually from Winnipeg, Manitoba, and we're located in Treaty 1 territory. And to Brian and Nancy, who alluded, it's really important to us here in Manitoba to acknowledge the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Dakota people and the homeland of the Métis Nations. So I'm a proud RRU grad. A bit about myself: born and raised in Winnipeg. I did my undergraduate studies at now the Toronto Metropolitan University in Ontario. And after working in the industry for a few years, I've been looking to elevate my skill set, my understanding of the industry from a more global perspective. And Roll Roads was at the top of my list when I was considering a master's program. And it was one of the best decisions I made for my career progression, my personal growth. And happy to be here today to share with you my own experience. I'll maybe share a bit about my experience and then we'll open up the floor for questions, because I believe this is the time for you as you're exploring your own journey and your own professional goals, how I could serve in informing that decision. I think in reflecting back on my journey, I graduated in 2016, and why I know that vividly in my mind, my son was born 2 weeks after I submitted my final research paper. And my experience at Roll Roads, some of the topics that were mentioned earlier, and I jotted them down as you were talking, Nancy. The prof that knows your name, I still think that's really critical to important that on campus you feel like you're part of a learning community, and your network is going to grow exponentially within your own cohort, within the industry, hospitality community and tourism community in Victoria, and I would say Canada at large and the world, given how this is an international industry. It definitely, in my cohort, I was part of the blended program, so we did online and in-person elements. We had a very global cohort, and that has lasting friendships and relationships. So you mentioned that connections for life. I still keep in touch and have visited some of my classmates and worked with them on projects professionally post-graduation. And the other element that was mentioned earlier that really resonated with me was learning based on life. So, you know, our industry, as Brian alluded to, has gone through this tremendous, I would say, shakeup in the last 2 years. And I would say the skills and the type of thinking that I did at Royal Roads through the classes, through our projects, through the teamwork, prepared me truly for as a leader through the pandemic for the last 2 years. Even though there's so many things we couldn't have been prepared for, I think the leadership skills I gained, the insights and research foundations that I learned throughout my program, I've been able to hone on those skills over the last 24 months. I think one question that often gets asked is, why invest in a master's program? Why, what does it do for my career? And I think I want to just touch on that because, you know, I think people are looking for the quick, you know, is it going to increase my salary by the amount of investment? I'm just going to answer the question really directly. I think any education program that you invest in, you get what you put into it. So if you invest in this master's program and you are committed to doing the work and building a network, connecting with professors, connecting with your cohort, you will reap the rewards, not just financial rewards, but the social, cultural connections, the personal growth that comes from that. When I was in the program, I was where I'm currently employed at Economic Development. We're the official destination marketing agency for the city of Winnipeg. And as I was working in business development, I had no direct employees. I was working, driving attraction of business events, groups to the city. And within 2 years of finishing my master's, I was now had 12 staff reporting to be responsible for multi-million-dollar budgets, and have even progressed since then. And so I think, to Brian's point earlier, the hospitality and tourism industry, I think you have to. Everyone has an entry point of working on the front line and that frontline service experience, whether you're a newcomer to the country and will be studying at Royal Roads, or for myself, how I started tour guiding and working in restaurants as my first experience in the industry. But that customer service lens and an appreciation of the visitors that we welcome to Canada, or, if you are looking to build a career in tourism where you live, that foundational element of understanding the visitor experiences. And now this very complex industry that involves looking at how are we ensuring that the well-being of our local citizens is considered when welcoming sort of the visitor economy, regenerative tourism, carbon zero events, diversity and inclusion would have not been even topics that we would have scratched the surface even in my program that has evolved. And that speaks to the professionalism, the intuition, the innovation, the remaining relevant, and not even just relevant, but almost future-proofing sort of some of the major things that you're going to face in your career in tourism. So I don't know if I want to, is there any questions in the chat? I can pause. I mean, I can speak to specific experiences if there's any questions that you want me to address, Nancy or Brian, or speak to directly.
I think one of the questions when I talk with prospect is, how did it go for you to go back to school? Maybe if we start from the beginning, like, were you scared? Were you like, oh my God, can I do it? Can I work at the same time?
Yeah, so I was working full-time with a travel schedule as well, traveling for business as well. And I think there was one, there's a lot of structure and understanding what is expected of you. I think there's also a good understanding from the professors that you're working in the industry and that's contributing to your education and the conversations that's happening in sort of group work and whatnot. I think speaking to, I'm accessible, similar to Brian's comment. If you want to have a conversation offline afterwards, I've spoken to students who are apprehensive about going back to school. I think it's being a lifelong learner and this curiosity, I think coming in with that, you're willing to sort of have an open mind and learn new things and to be ready to look at different topics that perhaps, I worked in DMOs before. So I actually challenged myself when I went to Royal Roads to take courses and to learn from different facets of the industry that I was perhaps not as familiar with. So to go in with an open mind, and it's good to have potential areas of interest, but to not limit yourself by that, because you may be surprised about what you might be exposed to along the way and the professors and people that you meet. I mean, I had the incredible experience of working closely with Jeff Bird, and my research project led me to do primary research in France, which I wouldn't have anticipated going into the program. So, yeah, we can go through all the benefits and check all the boxes of what it's going to be, but until you actually immerse yourself in the program, what an incredible opportunity to go to Amsterdam and learn about regenerative tourism. And, Europe is way ahead in terms of Canada, in terms of some of the work in that space. So, yeah, hopefully I've answered that question.
We have a question in the chat. What led you to choose the research project instead of the thesis of capstone?
So the capstone had just been introduced, I think, the semester I was there. For me, I wanted to keep the door, this is just personal, I wanted to keep the door open for a potential future PhD. I don't tell my husband, that's not in the cards yet, but it's the future perhaps. I think you learn a lot by doing primary research, especially given that my everyday work I would almost consider as different capstone projects. So I wanted to do something differently that would expose me to something different. And also understanding primary research and secondary research. I mean, we live in a world more so now where we're inundated by data, right? But what we really need to hone in on, what are the insights that we're gaining from all this research and how to actually properly and concisely sum up some of those results. So, which is part of doing research, right? You go out in the field, you do research, how do you ask the right questions if you're doing qualitative or quantitative research? How do you sum up the results? So those, for me, that was, and I've never been asked that question, but that's part of my rationale of why I chose that project. But correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, but you don't have to choose that right out of the gate, do you? Do you have to decide that right away?
No, you've got a little bit of time.
Yeah.
Also, you just want to get it before you actually decide. You need to get a feel for the program.
Yeah.
Most people coming in here have got some personal element which is driving their engagement with the program, wanting to get into it, right? So you want to look at that, and then people come in here and say, "Whoa, wait a minute. That looks more interesting over there. I'm going to find something else." So sometimes people have the opportunity to spread out their knowledge and understanding. The other people want to focus in and get more specialized and get the things which is driving forward. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I had colleagues who knew they wanted to work in disaster management long term and wanted to, hone in on that. Some colleagues that were in revenue management in hotels and wanted to do nothing to do with hotels and revenue management because they lived and breathed that all day long. So I think to Brian's point of that, those personal circumstances, what's maybe driving or motivating them, but understanding, come and experience at least your first few classes, get a sense of the type of learning, and then figure out what your perhaps long-term plans. Part of me really, when I chose to invest in the master's, was I was looking for a new challenge to learn more and really to open my eyes to what could be possible if I pursued further education.
Yeah, I was just thinking, Kathy McRae, who also graduated from the program, came in here with a passion for protecting grizzly bears, right? And so she wrote a paper, basically a white paper, which went to the NDP government and was largely instrumental in stopping the grizzly bear hunt on the coast. So, you know, if you've got a passion, if you've got a vision, if you've got an idea, that's powerful. Or if you're looking for an idea, you're looking for something which you're really committed to and involved in, yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, it's a place to find that.
Yeah.
I see a question in the chat about what was your best course? And I know it's a few years back, but is there something that really...
Oh, best course. You know, in reflecting back, you know, you always think about, oh, the people often think of the negative. Oh, what was the worst course? And there was none. And that's what stands out. It's hard to pick the best because every, and I have, beyond my undergraduate out of Ontario, I have an undergraduate in science. Took me a while to find tourism, but I could name you lots of classes that were not good for many reasons, but I think every course that was curated for the master's program had a really sense of you knew why you were there, why you were learning it, and I took something away. You know, I think of my time, I took the sustainability course as an elective at that time. I'm trying to think, you guys are testing me on digging back what some old papers were, you know, the teamwork element, as much as, you know, it can be, we live in working and collaborating with teams. Some of my best interactions were with colleagues who are from all walks of life and from all levels of experience, from you know, someone who have been working only for a few years in the industry to, you know, I would consider veterans who are looking for to perhaps go and teach or to look at starting a new business. So that's social entrepreneurship elements. So I would say that there was not one that stood out. I would say that they were all excellent. Oh, what made it worth it? Oh, so many things. I think the campus, and I'm only slightly jealous that the program's full on campus, even just as part of the blended program, it's an inspiring place to study. You do feel like you're part of a community. The network, as much as you're in Victoria, you're connected. Royal Roads and its reputation among industry across the country is very well known. I recently got appointed to the Destination Canada Board of Directors, which is Canada's national tourism agency that welcomes visitors from all over the world. I'd like to think that my education at Royal Roads and the weight that puts behind not just my credentials, but my experience, I think that's important to note. And I think just the people, right? Your cohort, your cohort, the professors, the supporting staff, everyone cares about your learning journey. And it's not just about you're an enrollment and you're a number, you have a student number. We've all heard that expression. Profs know you by name. You have incredible sense of connection to the university. And I still feel that many years after graduating. And if any Royal Roads grad reached out, Nancy can attest, I was the first one to say, happy to help. How can I help? If a fellow Royal Roads grad reached out to me for any reason, and I would feel the same. If I need to call a colleague to ask some questions or dealing with a particular challenge, you're part of a broader community.
Well said. Thank you so much. And I know Jen is asking, did you find it difficult to relocate from Ontario?
So I'm born and raised in Manitoba.
Oh.
I lived in Ontario for 4 years in Toronto and moved back to Manitoba and then started the program in at Royal Roads, and we were the blended program. So my experience is perhaps slightly unique because we did kind of 3 or 4 intensive sessions in Victoria, and but I think there's a whole new string of opportunities, the fact that you're full on campus, and I know that may not be possible for everyone, but knowing that the certificate program is online and then you have the ability, it allows you a bit more time to look at sort of the graduate program. I did see one question in the chat about what made me select my decision for Royal Roads, and I can tell you I did my research by bunch of reasons. One, it was a balance between academia and industry, so founded by foundational elements of research and academia, and also industry expertise, so working with the local industry professors or associate professors or instructors in some cases that work in the industry, and many faculty members have worked on several projects that have tangible impacts to how business actually operates in the industry. So I think that's critical to note. I think the foundational element that they were built to work with industry professionals, that this is meant to elevate your career, and also the looking at sort of the profile of the faculty members, and the opportunity to learn also from BC as sort of leaders in, they're seen as leaders across the country in many respects from a hospitality and tourism community perspective, that I thought I had lots to learn from, having studied in Ontario, lived in Manitoba, and wanted to take some of those best practices away.
Yeah, maybe I can just chime in on that. One of the, BC has always been a leader in tourism and hospitality. I don't think take a look at you can look at the economic statistics just to support that.
Yeah.
But there's some other places where BC has really shown leadership. One of the places that I've been involved in over the last 30 or 40 years is involved with seeing the development of Indigenous tourism, which has taken off in BC and which is really remarkably successful. So, you know, those kinds of elements really matter. Basically taking a look at what's happening in BC as a leading edge kind of place. Lots of people look to British Columbia as the leader in effective and sustainable and regenerative now tourism management. That's part of the deal. And it's a big chunk of our income and involves thousands and thousands of people working in the industry. So that is a really critical piece. It isn't just about Royal Roads having a leadership position in this. It's about our relationship with other people in the industry. We have many graduates who presently are working in destination British Columbia for the government. Okay, several people, they're policymakers. We have people who've been working in government who teach for us, including a number of graduates, as a matter of fact. So yeah, we've got that particular opportunity, and we don't. Also, I'll just point out this: we don't have a lot of competition in Canada. Okay, so we're a fairly unique organization, and we're rather proud of that because we've, I think, proven ourselves along with, you know, because of the quality and the success of our graduates.
I couldn't agree more.
And I like, Brian, what we see with the school sometimes is that your graduate will then hire other graduate, and it kind of create that railroad network in Canada, but abroad as well. I'm looking in the chat if we have more questions. Some people are asking about the grad certificate, so we can get back to this. Anything else? Yeah, go ahead.
I'll just add, I'll add my email address in the
Oh, that's
chat.
very kind of you.
Should you want to send
That's
me a note?
wonderful. Yeah. And I think for the people asking about the grad certificate, and I know it's not what you have done, Natalie, but I know people like myself, that's what I did at Railroad. I started with a grad diploma because I wasn't sure if I wanted to go back to school. And then I think most of us got hooked, and you're like, oh yeah, I'll do the master. So I think it's a very cool entry point, and it's not too demanding at first. And then we can just ladder up to the MATM or another MA at Railroad. So if that's helpful for some of you here. And yeah, so maybe before we let you go, Natalie, can you just explain us maybe what is your kind of day-to-day work now, or what do you do in tourism? Yeah, so we can learn a bit more.
My day-to-day, so I'm responsible for the attraction, or my team and I are responsible for the attraction of conferences and events, special events. So if you think of size of events like the Junos or the Olympics or the Pan Am Games, or conferences, whether it's a tourism conference, whether it's a conference on medical engineers, our team is responsible for the attraction of events. So I manage a team of 10 staff currently, working with, as you can imagine, with the pandemic, we're back in market, traveling, position the city to attract these events, working with our government to help with sort of recovery efforts, challenges with labor, of course, working with our industry association on our priorities. So coming out of the pandemic, my roles evolved quite a bit, given that everyone is short staffed, and our organization is included in that. But I think that's what is very, the optimism is that there's a lot of room for new perspective and voices to this industry. I just welcomed two new members to my team who have been in Winnipeg and in Canada for only 5 years, and have been incredible additions, and will be servicing sort of and working on it with our clients on a day-to-day basis. So it's a very exciting time to be rebuilding, but we have some tough questions to ask ourselves, and how we're on this World Tourism Day. How are we rethinking even how we attract events? And I mean, Canada is trying to lead the way as being a sustainable business events destination, but that means that every jurisdiction, including Winnipeg's, needs to make sure that we can deliver on that promise when bringing events as an example. So that's just a little snapshot of maybe what my morning was, because it's just past lunchtime for me.
Great, thanks, Natalie. I'm just going to respond to one point. Is the master's degree in tourism a continuation of your undergraduate degree? Not really. It builds on the undergraduate you've done, and people here have come in from all different kinds of directions. Some people have had years and years of experience in the industry and don't have significant BAs, right? We look at the individual case on a case-by-case basis. What it does is it gets you to think differently about the nature of hospitality and tourism. The idea is not to continue on with what you learned before, because we can't specify a particular set of what people have learned. If you're coming from Eastern Canada or from BC, or you're coming from Nigeria or Vietnam or China or wherever it happens to be, we don't have a common template for what an undergraduate degree in tourism and hospitality looks like. So it's coming from many different directions. What we do look at is we are looking for experience that is going to be beneficial to your partners and to yourself, And we're looking to see that experience magnified and developed and enhanced or built into with the master's degree. So it's a different kind of education. It's not the same as what you did as an undergraduate. You don't sit in large lecture theaters listening to people talk. I mean, it's just not like that. It's much more personalized. It's much more individualized. And it's also much more focused around developing team and leadership capabilities, working with your classmates. You're going to learn as much from the people in the class as you are from the instructors, because people come in with outstanding backgrounds and experiences that they wish to share. So, you know, it's different. It's not the same. And if you come in from a place where you didn't have an undergraduate degree, which I saw in a text just a couple of minutes ago, fine. You may have experiences and abilities and backgrounds which are going to be tremendously beneficial anyway. So it's much more a matter of looking at it and thinking about your own goals and objectives and seeing how it's going to, how the place is going to, how the experience at Royal Roads is going to build on what you've already got. And each person is going to have a different perspective on that and a different set of expectations. And what we want to do is to make sure that people learn and understand that it is a different kind of education, okay? It's not the same as other places. It's much more significant. And as Natalie has said previously, you build the network, you build your friendships. Nothing wrong with going to school and making more friends, especially in this industry, because it's based on interconnections and partnerships and friendships. That's what the tourism and hospitality industry is all about.
There was a question in the chat about what was the particular activity that I enjoyed the most during the program. I think of so many, not debates, but interesting conversation, the dialogue between classmates and professors, so that you were just alluding to, Brian. I can almost even visualize where it was in that classroom, or we had that sitting on the grass, you know, in front of the castle, or we had a conversation online about a particular topic. And so it's really hard to string together a particular activity, but I really liked the outside of the classroom and even within the classroom setting of having that dialogue about some big issues, right? You know, that when we're a global industry, that, you know, depending on the course, get to the opportunity to chat about. Yeah, and I think the other element is because when we came to campus, the opportunity to, there was opportunities to network with local industry members. Again, that's, I think, unique to this program. To Brian's point earlier, they're well connected, and it's really a partnership between the different businesses, organizations, government entities, and so to learn from those opportunities and to really take advantage and participate. Again, I'll say it again, you get out of it what you put into it, and that's like anything in life. So it's definitely it was life-changing for me.
Thank you so much, Natalie. Yeah, you make me think we had an event here in July, and I think, Brian, you were here, the tourism mixer, and I got to work with the people in the MA, and the students attended the event and were able to network and build those relationships. And it was just fabulous to see. Yeah, people that has been in the industry for 20 years connecting with new members, and yeah.
And it's hard to do that via Zoom. There's a place for this, and there's a place for this, and it's important for access and inclusion, but our business relies on people connecting.
Thank you so much for your time today. That was
My
so
pleasure.
informative. Yeah. And I'll continue for those of you who want to stay on with the application process. But thank you, Natalie. We'll be in touch after that. And thank you for sharing and letting us know your email as well. That's wonderful.
My pleasure. Best of luck, and I'm available should anyone have any specific non-admission, non-class questions.
Thanks a lot, Natalie. That was
My
great.
pleasure. Okay, bye-bye.
Wonderful. Bye.
Welcome to Royal Roads University. Our spectacular oceanfront 260-acre campus lies at the southern tip of Vancouver Island. A National Historic Site surrounded by old-growth forest, Royal Roads is only a 25-minute drive from downtown Victoria, the capital of British Columbia. Our campus is located on the traditional lands of the Kosupsum and Lekwungen ancestors and families. Here, you'll find a life-changing education in an inspirational learning environment like no other. The first place you'll want to visit on campus is the Sequoia Building. The welcome desk is open daily to help you settle in and start your Royal Roads journey. The centerpiece of Royal Roads University is the historic Hatley Castle. You may recognize it from countless television shows and feature films. In fact, Hollywood blockbusters X-Men and Deadpool were both shot here. One of the things that makes the Royal Roads campus so special is our outdoor spaces. We've got lots of social gathering spots and even more places to just be by yourself. With Canada's mildest climate, you're able to enjoy the outdoors any time of year. While there are countless other spaces on campus that we'd love to share with you, you'll have to just see them for yourself.